Friends, welcome back. I am Jason, and I want you to never be not ready. This is my ocean kit that I've been carrying around for a few years now, and it has served me well. I've used several of the components in here from time to time, and then I've ended up replacing them, but it's the original container and some of the original components as well. So let's dig in here and see what's in this compact survival kit. So it comes in this small plastic container that's easily stowed away in a cargo pocket or a fanny pack or the glove box of your car, something like that. And it's got a big rubber band, or if you're one of the survival gurus out there, you'll call that a ranger band. So it's wrapped around it to keep it sealed and keep it pretty dang watertight, actually. Open her up, and right on top, I've got a Mylar blanket. Now, a Mylar blanket is not my #1 preferred source of shelter. Like most of you that watch my videos know that I sleep under a poncho a lot, a tarp, something like that. But this is for use when everything has failed, when you've lost everything. Maybe you were packing really light and you were just going for a day hike and didn't want to bring all of your heavier duty, bigger, heavier gear. This can really save the day. I mean, in a torrential downpour, let's say it's 40 degrees and raining, and you're caught out in that. This is an amazing shelter that you can literally just slip into your back pocket. And for that reason, that's why we've included it into the kit. It reflects your body heat back onto you. It's watertight, and it sure as heck beats anything that you're gonna make out of natural resources out in the woods. Moving on to the Ulu, this is a blade of my design made by Bear Forest Knives. It is made of a high carbon steel and comes with a blade cover, not a sheath. You wouldn't want to put this in your pocket because that could come off pretty easy, but it is there to protect it from floating around in the kit while you're carrying it, and keep it from cutting anything up or damaging the edge or anything like that. But this thing is a scalpel. It is razor sharp. It is the most blade that you can fit into a small kit like this. Yes, you could put a small, even a folder in here, or a fixed blade knife with a handle on it, but you'd be much more limited on the blade size. This is the biggest blade, essentially, that you can comfortably fit into a kit of this size, or even smaller, like an Altoids size survival tin that have become so popular over the years. But this thing has a Scandi grind on it. It is razor sharp, hair shaven sharp, and I have used this blade quite a few times, and I don't think I've touched this one up at all. It just lives in the kit right there. It's a pretty handy blade. I've butchered deer with this before. It's actually really excellent at processing game, and that's what, the traditional Ulus of the Inuit people in the far north regions of the world use them for, is processing meat and whale blubber and such, things of that nature. Wood crafting and carving, cutting cordages and things of that nature, which we'll get to here in a second. It's perfect for that. It gets the job. It's a sharp, slicey thing. Now, this is a survival kit that I am promoting. It's a collaboration between me, Wazoo Gear, and Bear Forest Knives. However, I encourage you to not buy this kit. I want you to go build your own kit, and I want you to test all of the elements, all the pieces of gear that you put in there to see what works and what doesn't work. Now, if you want to bypass all the trial and error and you just want to cut right to the chase and get a kit that has all the things in it that you might need, and it's going to work because it's been tested by individuals like myself, then that's the way to go. But like I said, if you want to go build your own kit, please go do that. Like I highly encourage each and every single one of you to go build your own survival kits. I'm not going to try to sell you something unless that's something that you want, unless something that you feel like you need in your life. If it's something that you like, then yeah, buy one from us. That's fantastic. The link will be in the description and in the comment section to get one. But like I said, if you want to build one yourself, please do so, and I'd love to hear about it. We have Technora cord here. This stuff is 400-pound test, extremely strong. This stuff, it can really get you out of a jam if you need some really strong cordage for whatever reason. We used it one time to pull an electric bike up a pretty steep grade, not quite a cliff, but dang close to it. We used it to drag it up the hillside. It's really strong, really thin diameter right there. But, you could hang your hammock from this if you wanted to. It's strong enough to do so. And it doesn't really stretch. That's the amazing thing about it. Paracord will stretch. If you try to hang your hammock with paracord, eventually it'll stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. This stuff doesn't do that. We have a signal mirror in a plastic protective bag here to keep it from getting scuffed up and getting dulled as you're carrying it around. So this thing, we've tested these over long distances. I think the world record is something like over 100 miles. Someone has seen a flash from a signal mirror, and that is pretty dang impressive. So if you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere and you've got access to sunshine and some open space, this can be a lifesaver. Plus, it's really good for like inspecting your eyeball if you got something in it, which, I mean, you guys have all had this happen before. There's nothing more debilitating than something in your eyeball, like just driving you crazy. I've had it happen to me when I've been riding motorcycles or bicycles or something like that, and it's nice to be able to get an inspection there to see what's going on, or you can check the nether regions for hard to reach, hard to see places for ticks. So in here is a water kit and 2 zip ties right there. The zip ties are not part of the water kit necessarily, but it's just a nice convenient way to stow the zip ties. I mean, obviously zip ties can be used for anything and everything. Name it. Yeah, you know, securing something that's broken temporarily. Who knows? I've used zip ties to fix broken plastic on a motorcycle before that was flapping in the wind and needed to be just tied down for a bit. The water kit here has a water pre-filter in there, basically like a coffee filter inside of it. It's got a 1 liter food grade plastic bag right there, water purification tablets, and with this right here, I can gather water out of the creek or whatever water source that I find and make it safe from waterborne pathogens. You can also do a solar distillation, so you can take the aluminum foil that's wrapped up in here and you can lay it out and put your bag of water, the clear bag of water, on top of it, which we've done before. Leave it out in the sunshine, and that reflective aluminum will reflect that light all through all parts of that water bag and really help to sterilize anything in there with the UV radiation. A water container is something that's always difficult to carry around. Like a 1 liter water bottle is big and heavy and bulky, and it's kind of a pain in the neck to carry. And oftentimes, I'm guilty of it, I just don't bring one because I don't feel like I'm going on a couple mile hike or whatever. I don't need to carry a water bottle. I'll be fine. But things happen. You know, you get dehydrated, you get overheated, you didn't prepare enough, you didn't drink enough water ahead of time. This can get you out of a really tight spot. I mean, it's really easy to get in trouble from dehydration. And once you get behind on hydration, it's hard to come back from it. So something like this can really be a lifesaver. This is probably one of the most valuable pieces of kit that's in here. One of my favorite items in this kit, and probably the most used one, if I had to say, you know, one item in here that I use the most, it would be this little flashlight. It's significantly brighter than you would expect from this tiny little flashlight, and it really works well. I mean, you know, let's say the batteries die on your primary flashlight that's in your pocket, which has happened to me multiple times, and that's why I'm saying that this might be the handiest thing that's in here. I've used probably the most. You know, the batteries die in your flashlight that's in your pocket or whatever, and you need it's friggin' dark. You can't find your way back to your campsite that's only 100 yards away because your flashlight just died. That sucks. That is an unpleasant experience. And being able to pull from something like this, just pull out of here a tiny little flashlight that is significantly brighter than what you would expect, like I said before, is pretty great. Could be used for signaling, of course, all that kind of stuff, but just a backup emergency little illuminator right there is great. Now attached to it is a whistle. If you're stuck out in the woods, you've rolled the ankle, you broke your leg, you know, you're trapped, and you need to signal for some help, just 3 toots, really loud blows on a whistle like that every few minutes, and you can draw some attention to yourself and get yourself some help, especially if you're, you know, incapable of moving or you're wore out and exhausted, dehydrated, and can't muster up the energy to yell anymore or whoop or whatever. Can't whistle on your own. A button compass, also extremely handy, and I've used it on a very regular basis. I keep one in my belt just for emergency purposes or just a backup so I can, confirm which direction I need to go. This little button compass, while yes, you are not going to find a needle in a haystack with a button compass. No, you're not. But it will allow you to walk in basically a straight line. And if I know the road is east of me, or in this situation, literally it's north of me, if I know the road is north of my current location, I can use this to stay on a north trajectory until I hit that road. And for that reason, these things are really valuable. I'm a big believer in the button compass. They're really lightweight. I don't always carry a full-size compass with me because they're bigger and take up space, and I just generally just not necessary. Most of the time, my navigation needs don't require me to stay on a perfect aspect. Like I don't need to be that calculated, that accurate with my navigator. I just need to know westish. I need to know approximately what the north direction, and I can confirm that with this button compass right there. Now, the untrained eye would see these as just some simple orange bread ties, but these can be used for a lot of different things. One, you could secure your top of your water bag with them. Two, they're trail markers. They're bright orange on one side, and then you flip them over, and this reflects the light from any kind of flashlight at night, really bright, like the cat eyes. These things really show up quite well in the darkness if you need to use them to mark your path, to mark your trail. Yes, you could use them for all sorts of things. You could use a bread tie for, of course, but primarily that's why they're that bright orange, and that really bright reflective surface is on the back, so you can see it at nighttime with potentially your emergency backup flashlight right there. Here's a wire saw, great for cutting through green, small vegetation, doing small little intricate notches and things like that, processing wood and things. If you make a little bow saw using this right here, it works quite well. Brass wire. What do you use brass wire for? Yep, anything and everything that you can think of. I mean, for similar to like the zip ties, you can temporarily secure stuff, especially things that get hot. Like, for example, if I'm just trying to think of an example off the top of my head of something that happened to the exhaust on my motorcycle or something like that, and it was flapping and rattling and trying to fall off or something, and I need to secure it. A zip tie on a hot exhaust would not be a really good idea because it's made of plastic. This brass wire will not be affected by that heat, so it would work quite well for that. I have used this in an emergency, not an emergency like someone's going to die, but an extreme inconvenience. We were broke down in the absolute middle of nowhere. A fuse blew on my buddy's motorcycle, and we were stuck. We could ride a couple hours to go get a new fuse, then a couple hours back to get him fixed up and back on the road, but that's awfully lame. Why split up and separate and potentially get lost and somebody crash and not know what happened to them, and just all the things that happen when you split up when you're riding in a group. We were able to temporarily fix that blown fuse with just a small piece of this brass wire, just joining the two sides of that fuse together. And it got the job done. We were back on the road in just a few minutes using just something as simple as a little bit of brass wire. A lot of the things in this kit are just for solving problems. It's not really necessarily for any specific one thing or another. Like this, for example, this to the untrained eye is just a simple fishing kit. But in reality, it could be used for anything and everything. It's got some fish hooks, some sewing needles in there. You rip your clothing. If you spend any time outside in the wilderness, in the wild, hiking off of trails specifically, if you hike off trails, you're going to get tears and nicks and stuff in your clothing. And having just a simple sewing needle and some fishing line here to sew the crotch of your pants back up because you stepped a little too high and your pants were wet. You know how it is. And you tore the crotch open on your pants. Maybe you forgot to wear underwear that day and it's a little bit embarrassing. You can sew your pants back up with this kit right here. And yes, you can use it to catch some fish as well, but you can use it for all sorts of things if you're thinking outside the box. In an extreme survival situation, I wouldn't recommend you do this because it's definitely illegal, but you can catch everything from turkeys and other birds with a fish hook like this. You put a little bit of corn, let's say you had access to something like that. You put a piece of corn hanging from a fish hook from a springy branch across a trail or something like that, and a bird comes along and gets that, he'll get snagged just like a fish would. Now, again, I'm not saying do that in normal situations, but if you were dying of starvation, that's one tactic that would definitely work, and that's kind of thinking outside the box, outside of just a fishing kit. Duct tape. Do I need to explain duct tape? I don't think so. Duct tape's good for anything and everything. If WD-40 can't fix it, I wish we could put WD-40 in here. I wish there was a way to make that happen, but we didn't. Maybe the next batch of kits we'll put that in there. Patching holes in your tarp. You get a little burn hole in your tarp from being too close to the fire or something. I've got pieces of duct tape on ponchos that have been on there for years. Literally years. That's been a permanent fix. Bandages, things like that. You can use it for all sorts of things. Blisters forming on your ankles, on your heel or whatever. Put a piece of this over top of it and it'll keep it from rubbing raw. A tiny little fire plug. Yes, you can make tender in the woods, but oftentimes it's wet and you need to process it and it takes time. And what if you're freezing cold and shivering and it's still raining? Having a ready to go tinder source like these right here, this is great. These things burn for a long time. They're essentially waterproof. You throw it in the river, pull it back out, tear it apart, and it'll still light up. And they're pretty great. They're easy to light on fire with a small little ferro rod and striker such as this one right here. Now here's another backup blade. This is a ceramic blade right here. This thing is really sharp. I mean, that is scalpel sharp. It will lay you open if you are not careful with it. But yes, it will cut the cordage. Not great for carving tasks and such. I have used it for that in green woods before, softer woods, but it's not great for that. But it's really good for cutting packaging, cutting the tape to small little pieces, patches if you need it. The cordage, obviously, you can cut with it. Who knows what you'd need that for, but or using it to cut a little bit of your heel skin off to use as bait, which we have done, and it works really good for that. But a little tiny scalpel right there if you should need one. But yes, it also works as the striker for this ferrocerium rod right there. And in conjunction with that, you pretty much got fire. Now, if you were still struggling with fire in this, it was so wet or whatever, the conditions were really bad, we've got a fire card right here. These things are made of the same stuff that guitar picks, cellulose, I believe, celluloid, I think is what it is. Anyway, you scrape this stuff off into a small little pile, and then you use your ferro rod and striker to ignite it, and then you can ignite this whole card on, and then stand back, because good grief, this thing is crazy flammable. And I've got videos of me demonstrating that previously, and I'll be showing you guys in the future as well. So that pretty much completes the kit, guys. Let me know if you have questions in the comment section about the kit and the items that are in there, why this in there, why this isn't in there, why we did this, why we made these decisions. I'd be happy to answer those, because there's definitely a reason behind it all. This is a kit that I carry. This is a kit that I want to have on me if I had nothing else. You know, if I'm traveling super light, that's primarily when I use it, actually. I mean, I've got my normal camping gear, of course. I mean, I've got, you know, my poncho that I sleep underneath at night. I've got a hammock, perhaps. I've got the shelter. I've got a knife on my hip. I've got all the things. But let's say, for example, most recently, I was doing some aquatic activities. I was out on a paddleboard. We were traveling into a fairly remote area, and I didn't want to bring all my normal stuff, and I don't want things in my pockets, because, you know, if you swim in water and things in your pockets, they won't be in your pockets when you get done swimming. Trust me, it happens. Even things on your belt and stuff, it's just, I don't trust it as much when I'm in the water and around water. So having a kit like this in a pouch, like a fanny pack, is what I had, strapped to my body that I know is not going to go anywhere. And if I should get into trouble, most likely not going to happen, but that's what we always say. That's what everybody always says. I didn't think it was going to happen to me. I didn't think I was going to get stranded. I didn't think, you know, my paddleboard was going to get broken in half. I didn't think the alligator was going to chomp down on my leg. all the things that we don't think are going to happen can and will happen when we least expect it. And that is where I truly think that a kit like this shines, because I could carry this, and in the case of an emergency, I could pull this kit out and it will get me through a tight spot, at least for the short term. So again, in the comment section, let me know what you think is missing. What do you think we need to add? What do you think we crushed it? We nailed it. We have this thing dialed in. So give us some feedback. I'd love to hear it. I'm going to be posting later this week a video of me using just this kit. I set out on the river and I paddle downstream, and I'm enjoying the scenery and the wildlife and having a great time floating the rapids. And then suddenly my canoe gets capsized. All my gear gets washed downstream except for the kit that's in my cargo pocket. And then I use the kit and all the elements in there, most of the supplies in there, in creative ways to, you know, aid my survival and get me through that tight spot that I'm in. So stay tuned. Later this week, not tomorrow, but the next day probably, I'll be posting that video. And then future videos are going to be out, and I'm going to be doing more adventures using just this kit, heading off into wild places and testing myself, testing my skills, and testing this kit. Until next time, friends, what's the worst that could happen? Let's just go on 3.